What is up, boys? Today we're going to talk about why Half-Life 2 Episode 2 it's a better game than Half-Life 2 in terms of pure gameplay. You see, Half-Life 2 is a great game, but it has its weak points too. The first weak point being the fighting of striders and flying enemies such as helicopters or gunships. Let's take, for example, what should have been an epic battle against the striders in Fall of Freeman or defending the rebel outpost and lighthouse in Highway 17. Well, both fights turn out not to be epic at all, since these fights only come down to a repetitive hide and peek out of cover to shoot enough rockets to take the enemies down. In my opinion, it's boring and unfun, and I think that the guys at Valve realized it too while developing Episode 2 and decided to improve upon it. Do you guys remember the helicopter fight at the end of the riding shotgun chapter? Yeah, instead of spamming rockets or pulse rifle fire at it, the devs decided to make use of the gravity gun, which is much more interactive and fun to use than hiding and peeking in and out of cover with an RPG. We gotta wait for the helicopter to drop the bombs, sprint towards them, pick them up with our gravity gun and try to aim them well against the helicopter. I also think that the height of the helicopter flight is just about right to aim your bombs. Plus, these bombs have a good weight and feel good when throwing them. This is the opposite of what happens during the mediocre final Half-Life 2 battle, where you just have to spam energy balls that fly very slowly towards the two gunships that are moving around and are way too distant from you. Hitting these final bosses, if you want to call them like that, only comes down to luck here, and this final fight is very bad in my opinion. Fighting the Striders too has seen some considerable improvements in Episode 2. In fact, thanks to the Magnusson device, making them implode on their legs is a lot more fun. It really feels as if you're playing a deadly rugby where the survival of humanity is at stake. Aiming the Magnusson device onto the small strider body is not easy, but it's not too hard either. And then you have to be precise with your guns to make it explode. I kinda wish I had the Half-Life 1 Glock here, since it's perfectly accurate, and as we all know the Half-Life 2 USP and SMG are a bit imprecise, but with some proper spamming we can pull it off. The second gameplay improvement in Episode 2 is the addition of two cool new enemies to fight, the Hunter and the Antlion Worker. Lots of people, myself included, have criticized Half-Life 2 for a lack of enemy variety, which is indeed true since in Half-Life 2 we mostly fight squads of combines and hordes of zombies and headcrabs. Most of the enemies, excluding the Antlions, fast zombies and combines, are quite stationary enemies that do not show a lot of aggressiveness towards the Freeman, and there is no sense of urgency in killing them. Antlions may be aggressive but are not too threatening. I usually just run away from them in Sand Traps and Highway 17, while the Combines are a bit more scary since they have a long-range firing weapon and they can chip down your health, but they are not too threatening either. They go down quite fast in fact. The Shotgunner is probably the most aggressive of the Combines and is indeed the kill priority when you meet a Combine squad. I think that, thanks to the introduction of the Hunters, Combine fights have become a lot more dynamic and engaging in Episode 2. The Hunters do crave your blood, and to taste it, they will charge at you with full force like a werewolf from Sirius and Wood, and they will also shoot darts that can both eat you pretty hard or explode on the surface they get attached to. As a result, you will have to walk, or better sprint, on your tiptoes while taking down their hefty 210 health points to avoid all the different moves they can perform. Hunters are for sure a threat, and Episode 2 makes it very clear from the very start of the game. They're also showcased on the cover art. And now on to the second edition, the Antlion Worker. an often overlooked enemy that I personally really like because they are very well designed, both visually and for gameplay purposes. They have 60 HP, placing them in between a Combine Elite and a Combine Soldier. They might look squishy and innocent at first, but these guys do pack a punch, especially if you're playing on hard. They will spit acid at you from the long range, and I still don't know how much damage it does. There are times where I got killed from like 100 HP to 0 from one single spit, but one thing is for sure, they hit like a brick. And if dealing a lot of damage wasn't enough, Antlion workers are also difficult to hit, since they constantly try to gain distance and height if Gordon tries to get close to them. They also have a useful sidestep dodge that infuriates the heck out of me, cause I hate wasting ammos. Antlion workers are quite satisfying to kill too. In fact, once you have managed to catch their elusive ass, they will explode in an acidic cloud, which feels very rewarding. But be careful, because their body explosion still deals damage if you're too close to them. And let's not forget about the Zombine too. Introduced in episode 1, I believe it's a great addition to the rosters of zombies present in Half-Life 2. The Zombine is a bulky undead of 100 HP, and unlike the standard zombies, is quite aggressive as well. He will not only charge at you to shoulder smash you onto a wall, he is even willing to blow himself up with a grenade like an headless kamikaze would. And this suicidal action of his makes him a big threat from which you can either run from or fight, and sometimes they just outright kill themselves. So I really like the Zombine and I welcome it in the Half-Life 2 enemy roster because it's aggressive, and the only aggressive zombie was a fast zombie. The other ones do not pose much of a threat. Also, I think that by adding hunters and zombines, Valve fixed the lack of medium to high HP enemies that were lacking in Half-Life 2. In fact, in Half-Life 2, aside from the Poison Zombie with his 175 HP, there were no other enemies which you could pour some lead into. And also the Poison Zombie is not too satisfying to kill since he moves very slow and it feels like you're shooting inside a sack of potato. The last addition to the episode 2 enemy roster is the Antlion Guardian. In Half-Life 2 we had already met two of his lesser venomous brothers, the Antlion Guards, but they are mostly treated as a mini-boss, since you only get to fight two of them around the end of the Nova Prospect and the Sandtrap chapters. In episode 2, you actually only fight one Antlion Guard because the latter is accompanied by the newly introduced Antlion Guardian, which is a stronger version of the guard because it can intoxicate Gordon with a neurotoxin similar to the one of the poison headcrab. They both share the same amount of HP, 500, but the poisonous one looks cool as hell. I also feel like having to fight the two of them all together in Freeman Pontifex makes the battle a lot more epic and challenging, especially because when you first meet the Antlion Guardian inside his nest, all you can do is run away like a little pussy. But one chapter later, Gordon can retrieve his dignity as a man by slaying not just the Guardian, but the guard too. It's a better fight than the final battle of Half-Life 2. Let's move on to the third and final improvement of episode 2, which regards the vehicle sections. We all know that in Half-Life 2 we have two whole chapters where the vehicles are the protagonist, which is Water Hazard and Highway 17. Let's start by the first flaw of these two chapters: they are way too long. Hell, I don't boot up an FPS game to drive mediocre vehicles around. Like, you could cut down 50% of Water Hazard and the chapter wouldn't lose any value since most of the time you're just driving straight, praying that the pulse rifle of the helicopter misses its shots. Aside from jumping around on the various ramps you encounter, I don't think there is a true highlight to Water Hazard. In Highway 17 instead, At least we have the train sequence where a train is speeding against you and you gotta avoid it last minute, which can provoke an adrenaline response in the player. But still, even Highway 17, I feel like it's a mediocre driving chapters. Another reason why I think the driving is not too fun in Highway 17 and Water Hazard is because the maps are too open and extensive. I think that driving is fun when done on an area that resembles a track, maybe with some obstacle thrown into the mix. And episode 2 does just that and shortens the length of the driving sections too. During the riding shotgun chapter, we get to drive a muscle car, and I do dig the railway section where we gotta avoid the mines the helicopter launches against us and the various train and the barricades on the rail track. It's quite fun, it feels like Subway Surfer at an higher speed, but most importantly, it does not overstay its welcome. Before the railway track, we also get to drive around White Forest through paths and trails that in my opinion look way more suggestive than the desolate and empty wastelands of Highway 17 and Water Hazard. Moreover, the first battle against the Hunters, mixed with combines during Gordon's and Alec's power struggle around the radio tower, and the second fight against, again, combines and Hunters in the picturesque little town are quite engaging and are very intense combat that successfully break the pace from the driving. At the end of the day, riding shotgun isn't even a driving chapter, it's probably 70% fighting and 30% driving, which is a better deal than what we get in Half-Life 2. And if you liked the exploration aspect of Highway 17 and Water Hazard, Episode 2 introduces a little radar that beeps and signals whenever you pass close to some useful crates. To conclude this third point, I also think that the muscle car is a lot more fun to drive, especially more fun than the airbot. In fact, this amphibic vehicle does not have any nitro and it's not adrenalinic at all to drive around. Sure, the jumps are cool and the airbot physics are pretty impressive for a 2004 game, since the airbot realistically bounces around after a jump and never really gets stuck, yet it's not too exciting to drive. This scout car, at the very least, has got a very strong boost and a kick to it, but I still prefer the episode 2 muscle car to it. The latter has more weight to it, it's harder to flip around, and the boost has a shorter duration and cooldown, which makes the car easier to handle. So, ladies and gentlemen, let's recap on why I think Episode 2 is a better game than Half-Life 2. There is a better approach to Striders and flying enemies combat. There is more enemy variety, with the addition of 3 new enemies and a new enemy from Episode 1, and the vehicle sections are less painful and more fun. I also really enjoy the ambience inside the Antlion caves, I think they are stunning, and the White Forest in general looks great. But since Vanilla Half-Life 2 doesn't sport any of these natural environments, I won't compare them to Half-Life 2. The caves kinda feel like a throwback to the Gonarch layer too. So yeah guys, I do prefer Episode 2 gameplay over Half-Life 2, and if I want to scratch some Half-Life 2 itch, I always boot up Episode 2. I mean, some Half-Life 2 chapters are cool, but a full playthrough of Half-Life 2 is just too much for me, I'd rather do something else. So guys, share your opinions and see ya.